Well, man, I've been playing music for over 20 years, so my tastes are pretty diverse. I mean, I like to think that there's two kinds of music. There's the good kind and the bad kind. And people come in here because they want the good kind, whatever that means to you. You know, if the good kind is AC/DC, then it is. If the good kind is Jay-Z, then it is. If the good kind is Martha and the Vandellas, then it is. You know what I mean? So, my personal favorites, because I'm a guitar player and because I'm a songwriter, I always like where those two worlds meet, but I'm big on songs. So I grabbed a few things that are near and dear to me that are in the shop. And these are things that I like, but these are also things that if you want your collection to be diverse, then you should have a few of these cats in your collection, you know. Booker T and the MGs. They had a hit with Green Onions in 1962, I believe. And they are just one of the best bands to ever come out of America. Then, the total opposite end of the spectrum, Iggy and the Stooges. Birth of Punk Rock, late 60s, Detroit, Michigan. You think that the state of the nation's in a bad way right now, try living in Detroit in about 1970. This band started it all for me, the Ramones. Great for people with short attention spans. All the songs are 2 minutes. They didn't know how to play, they just liked music and they started a band. And now they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So this is kind of the example that I give to everybody about living the dream, man. Start a band and take over the world. You can do it. The Ramones did. I've been a touring musician since I was 16. I worked in restaurants for a number of years. But for the last 5 years, I've just dedicated myself 100% to being a musician. Didn't have a day job for a good long while, and I was real blessed, man. I started coming to Groovers because it was, you know, a record store in town, and I shopped here, and I've always loved vinyl, and I play music, so I'm always digging through old records, and became friendly with the owner, a gentleman by the name of Tom Allen, and he really took me under his wing, man. He just said one day, I like your attitude, I like your knowledge about music, I like that you know how to talk to folks. You want to come work for me? And I've been here a year and a half, and I work 2 days a week for him, and I'm blessed. It's more of an experience than a job, because I get to come in and get an education on music every day from folks, and help other folks learn about music, and it's fantastic, man. It really is fantastic. My first memories of being affected by music would be driving around in my mom's Volare station wagon, born and raised in Riverside, listening to KRLA and K-Earth 101 and the oldie stations that she would have on, because in the 70s and 80s, oldie stations were still playing, oldies were still from the 50s then. So I was literally listening to my mom and my aunt's music, and that's what really started me off. When you're a kid, you don't have any point of reference. You don't know that this is old music or this is new music. You just know that it's good music and that you like it. Fast forward a little bit to about 12, 13 years old. My dad, he cared a great deal for folk music. He liked, Simon and Garfunkel and Jim Croce and Neil Diamond. He was also a big fan of classical music, so there was always guitars and banjos and stuff like that in the house. And I think just natural curiosity of a teenager, I'm kind of discovering music, and there's an instrument in the house, so you start to see if you can figure out some chords. And the more and more I got into guitar, the more and more I got into old music, and I really became influenced by music of the 50s and 60s. And because I was a teenager, I was also into punk rock, so all of my bands have had something to do with all of those things. Old music meets hard, loud rock and roll. Was our owner, Tom. He's born and raised in Riverside. He's been shopping for records in town since the 1960s, and he was very influenced by the way that record stores were in the 60s and 70s and the 80s. When he used to go shop for records, he used to go to a place called Gillette's Records in the Brockton Arcade in Riverside, and it was run by a man named Doug Gillette. And in that place, you could come in, you could stay for 5 minutes or 5 hours. You always had a listening station where you take them out and see them. They had dollar records, they had dime records. Tom was very influenced by that, and that was something that he took with him through his life. And when he decided to make this place, he wanted to make sure that element was represented. Future of music, man. That's a tough one. I've been in the business for 20 years, and every time you think you got it figured out, like I said, they flip the game on you. 7 years ago, I lived in Orange County and record stores were closing. So if you told me I was going to come work at one in 7 years, I'd have thought you were nuts. So the future is undecided, man. You know what I mean? That's the great thing about this stuff. We make the future right now, And as long as there's people who are passionate about this stuff, then it's going to continue to be. I encourage people, shop locally. You know what I mean? Go to your favorite local record store. Go to your favorite local music store. Go to your favorite local watering hole. Support folks. These places are started by real people that are passionate about what they're doing, and as long as there's a guitar and a stage and a microphone, people are always gonna do music, man. It always comes down to somebody getting in a room and playing music for folks. That's never gonna go away. Keep selling T-shirts, keep selling records. Keep pushing things forward. That's what we're supposed to do. So if the last 7 years is any sort of an inkling of what we're headed for, I take that as a positive sign. Like I said, very grassroots. It always comes back to basics, man. There's a process of weeding out, and as long as there's people and the folks like Tom who are passionate about these things, then it's going to survive, and it's going to happen when you least expect it, And if we keep going that way, then we're going to be doing all right, man.